housing. So in the discussion paper that they looked at first, they made a couple key points. One of them is that Leeds and Grenville's population is aging and will require more supports for our seniors. Intensification and greater diversity of our housing stock. So if you look around, everyone can see most of our housing is single family homes. So as we're running out of space, that's when we start to look at ways to intensify. So again, the secondary suites is one of those ways. And we have a high incidence of core housing need in renter households. And there's a gap in housing affordability in Leeds and Grenville. So some of the recommendations that they put forward we're considering is identifying surplus municipal lands that could be converted or used to build new affordable housing units. So that's one of the current projects that I'm looking at right now and we'll be bringing forward this spring. Partnering with nonprofit housing providers to identify suitable land or establish a land trust, purchase a multi-unit building to convert to affordable housing, create a revolving affordable housing program fund to generate funds to build new housing. Develop some outcome-based performance indicators to track progress. Partner with member and partner municipalities to have an ongoing dialogue about affordable housing and work collaboratively towards affordable housing initiatives. And one of their recommendations was to create my position to look at implementing the recommendations from the report. Some of the things that I've been working on, so connecting with developers and supporting projects in development. So if, as staff become aware of any, housing developments going in, it's wonderful if you guys could help connect me just to reach out and sort of have that warm transfer to the developer. I've been talking to the different developers that have either reached out to myself or I've contacted throughout Leeds and Grenville, just about some of the different programs and advantages of having these units. I've also been working to promote the secondary suite program. I'm looking at setting up an affordable housing development 101 workshops through a nonprofit housing developer. So it'll be a online, like Teams based, so anyone can do it from anywhere. It could be for staff and municipal officials, and that's sort of like the next step after the surplus land project is done. Just once we sort of decide, which lands you want to look at, then this developer, or this. They're a developer. So this developer they have a little workshop to work through it. They're called CADCO up in Ottawa. They said that they could do this as a way just to talk through the whole development process. So they said that they often get calls from municipalities and nonprofit groups. And so they created this workshop for this purpose. And the last one is to create a definition of affordable housing that could be used throughout Leeds and Grenville funded programs. And then that's my contact information. So I'm happy to receive phone calls. If any of you ever want to talk affordable housing, give me a call. You can get me right there or email me.
Great. Thank you, Caroline. Does anyone have questions for Caroline? Councillor Burton?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I think it's important that I was talking to you earlier and talking about how many municipalities are you doing the presentation, because I think it is important for you to go around, especially our neighboring municipalities, because there's a lot of new council members and new mayors. So this is important to get the word out and the information out. And I'm just wondering if we could add this to our website, the information to our website, so we could have that contact information. If somebody's going on our website and they want to talk about affordable housing, they know who to call. Thank you.
Hi, thanks. So if someone qualified and would fit into any of these programs, first of all, how do they know about it? And second of all, how long of a wait for them to get into some sort of housing?
Oh, okay. So in terms of knowing about, you're talking about getting into like an affordable housing rental unit. A lot of our community partners will share the word. So if, let's say you're visiting, a social worker or a doctor or, any of our programs, really, we would hope that our community partners would help to share that information. But our website also has full comprehensive information on the different units. The application form can be printed off there. We have paper applications in all of our offices for those that don't have access to printing it off online. In terms of the wait, it really depends on what kind of housing you're looking for. So right now in Leeds and Grenville, we have about 300 people waiting for rent geared income housing, just on the county list. And it could be anywhere from 1 to 2 years. Our one bedroom lists by far have the longest wait list. So if you're a one bedroom adult, but it's definitely worthwhile if there's any need to get your name in the queue and get your name on the list and not to be discouraged.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, sorry, Councillor McConnell, then Councillor Young, then Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. You've used the term.
I kick you now.
Sorry.
It's all right.
You'd have to be here. You used the term forgivable loan a few times. Those are two words that don't usually go in the same sentence. Can you explain what you mean by that, please?
Yes, absolutely. So from some of our different programs, such as the Ontario Renovate, secondary suites, and home ownership programs, we sign an agreement with the homeowner for a specific period of time. They're each different, but for instance, the secondary suites, I believe it's 15 years. And and if you charge affordable rents on that secondary suite unit for the 15 years, meet all the requirements, at the end of that 15 years, the loan is forgiven in full. So the $25,000. Let's say you get halfway through and your life circumstances change. So you move, you don't want to rent it anymore or something like that. It's forgiven at an equal rate per year that for that particular program. So it's wonderful if you're able to make it through the duration of the loan period, because then at the end it's a grant in that sense.
So there is no payment yearly as long as you have it rented at the approved rate.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Young?
Thank you. We were just at a Roma conference. I was going to say conference. And one of the first questions that I had was, what is affordable housing? So I thought that was interesting that's on your to-do list. But one of the things that they pointed out is that affordable may be too limiting, and they suggest attainable housing. And I'm just wondering, curious to see where you're thinking you might land on that.
Yeah, I'm also interested in that, because I saw some of the wording that's been coming out. I think was it in Bill 23, the new Planning Act and everything, and they're talking about attainable housing now, and they're looking at landing on a definition. So that's definitely something.
Thank you.
Councillor Campbell has a question.
Thank you. Hello, thanks for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. So if I can get this right in my head. So a developer comes, they see some land, they buy the land. And what if they build this beautiful building and they want to charge so much rent? At some point, they contact you and say, can we get some money to help people live here? Or do they contact you before they even start building?
Yeah, it really depends. So there's different benefits. So one of them is if you start before you build, there's you can tap into different funding through CMHC. So they have some loans or loan/grant programs that if you're building affordable housing that developers can apply for. We don't have any sort of in situ programs as of yet, but there are housing allowances, for instance, that would be like, let's say the building's already existing and we have rent supplement agreements or something like that, that could be arranged if it's a building that's already existing. But yeah, it's great if they can get in at the development stage, and there's some benefits there.
So would that lead to like inferior building? I'm thinking thin walls or like will they kind of shirk corners trying to get something up but still get their tenants in there?
I don't think so, just because there's measures put in place, right? Through building inspections and like through the town, they would have to meet the different, like the building inspector comes in, they have to sign off on it before occupancy permits are issued. So I think there's protections put in place there just to ensure that it's built safely.
Okay, and then in terms of people putting in-law suites or having people in their basement, is there any provision for parking? Because all these people are gonna come with cars, and I've been out to Vancouver and the laneway houses in Victoria, and the cars are just everywhere. So how is a municipality supposed to deal with that?
That's a good question. I mean, that's something I would probably put back to you guys and your planner to discuss further. I do believe that there was some changes that came through with Bill 23 that was looking at reducing the number of required parking spaces, but I would ask your planner that question in terms of what leeway you have, in terms of having your own municipal requirements. That's unfortunately outside of my expertise.
Okay.
But it's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what is the relationship with Habitat for Humanity in terms of, it seems a similar kind of program in a sense. Do you talk with them?
So they are a nonprofit group. So we definitely, if a nonprofit group approaches us and applies for funding, that's something that, we would be open to discussing. So they definitely provide a service with their funding, but it's not, they're not sort of like part of the county's programs, but they're one of the nonprofits.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kirkby?
Thank you. Very good presentation. Just wondering, is there any new builds by the counties in discussion? So new buildings that they're actually taking on, or is this all driven from the private industry? Is the county's hoping that the private industry builds the houses and the apartment buildings?
It's a good question. That's sort of our next steps right now with this land project, the surplus land. So the decision will be sort of after we identify land, that's the next steps. Is it, and council will be the ones to sort of direct that in terms of, is this something that the county will build ourselves, or will we hire somebody, or will this be land that's sold to a developer with an arrangement and then they build it. It sort of depends. There's a couple projects happening right now. So the Margarita Residence Corporation, so they recently built Wall Street Village. They're doing a new build for St. Vincent's. You guys may have heard about it in the news. We have another project that the county's is building up in Kentville called Courthouse Apartments. It's new supportive housing project that's in the works. And then lately on Perth Street, I believe it is, Pixie Place is another supportive housing project. So the county's renovated a church, and that was sort of a project that we did ourselves. So it could be either really. It just sort of depends on what the direction is, or it could even be a combination.
Right. And then the modernization of some of these buildings, I know there's some older buildings in Prescott in particular. Are they constantly being looked at to be run more efficient, i.e. from electric heating to gas to water boiler systems to different stuff? Is that something that the counties is trying to, the more money you save is the more money that there is to spend. And I think of one particular building in Prescott along our waterfront, right, that I think has been there since I was a kid, and I'm 47 now, right? So I just wondered, is there a modernization plan there that for some of these units? I'll be honest, I've never been inside them recently, so yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd have to contact our asset manager to get a clear answer on that. But what I do know is he's constantly doing upgrades. So I'm not great with building terms, but is it a heat recovery unit, or what are they called? So they're constantly, I hear about them, but I don't really know what they are. So they are constantly doing upgrades, and I can say that our housing stock is in really, really good shape. That was something that I think we can be really proud of in Leeds and Grenville, because I don't think all municipalities can say the same thing. So they really have invested a lot of money just in terms of capital updates every single year, and then just ongoing work. And then taking advantage of different programs as they come along as well. I know staff are always looking into that for the energy efficiency for sure. I just, it's outside of what I normally do, so I can't speak to it very intelligently.
Well, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Councillor McConnell and then Elvira.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar.
Thank you.
Just to help you out a bit, the United Counties building on Water Street had solar panels put on the roof. It was in either my first or second term, and I believe it's got something to do with the water system in the building. So
Okay.
they are upgrading in town according to technology. The question that I actually had for you was, in the first term I was on council, the United Counties bought land in the northwest corner of Prescott for affordable housing. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but it sat there for all these years and nothing has been done.
Okay.
You haven't mentioned it and you seem surprised by it. So could you, over the next days, weeks, whatever, look into that and see if there's any future there, or if there's any plans there, or if we can kick the can a little bit and possibly see what we can do there?
Yes, I'll absolutely look at that as a part of it. I'm not familiar with, I'm thinking northwest corner, I'm not sure.
We have a school in the northwest corner. This property connects a street that runs to the north of that school with Churchill Road. So it would be a continuation, and it was largely for affordable housing.
Okay, I'm very interested in that. Thank you for mentioning that.
If I may interrupt, I think Matthew may know about that.
Oh,
So I
okay.
believe it was deemed surplus last fall. They went out to RFP and they just recently awarded it the sale of that lot. I think it's in the northeast corner. The other west,
Who authorized that?
the United Counties.
Okay, so they're selling it back?
No, so they sold it to the market.
It's right behind the old Boundary Street School, whatever it's called now, or Wellington School, I think it is. Yeah, it was the area behind that from the end of Fort Town Drive connecting over to Churchill Road. It was of interest to council because it made a connection out of what is a dead-end street. So sewer-wise and traffic-wise and just neighborhood-wise, it was good for that area, but nothing has ever been done.
Carol, I just have a question. You mentioned there's 300 families or so on that waiting list. Is that average? Is that more? Is that less than normal? Would you know?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd have to follow up to find out. I just floated it past my manager actually this morning, and I said, in case anyone asks me what the wait list is. So I'd have to find out.
Right.
So.
And if you do find out, if you don't mind sending us, like, would that be separated into the different municipalities? Like how many in each municipality would be on the wait list?
Oh, I can find out. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Great.
That's a great question.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation today.
Great.
We look forward to getting more information from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
You have a rule, once you're in the room, you have to stay for the.
She decided. Thank you. So item 6.1 is council minutes of January 16th. The motion reads that the council minutes dated January 16th, 2023 be accepted as presented. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Young, Councillor Kirkby. Are there any discussion about these minutes? Call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. 7 is communication and petitions. You'll see a letter from the Honorable Carolyn Mulroney, Minister of Transportation. I get these emails, I send them and share them with the rest of council, just for your information. Moving on to number 8 is consent reports. So we have an information package, 8.1. Is there anything in the information package? Councillor Young?
Could we bring forward number 8? Township of Lanark Highlands resolution in support of violence against women.
Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Kirkby?
Sorry. Councillor Young, account. Number 8.
You're- Same one?
There it is.
And it is, I don't see it unfortunately. I apologize. Yeah, this is the town of Petrolia with regards to the school board and the election.
Right? Okay, we'll bring that one out as well.
Yep.
Anyone else? Councillor McConnell?
There's nothing I want out, Mayor Shankar, but I just like to note that number 3, number 9, and number 10 all refer to Bill 23 and their objections to all or parts of it, which we have already objected to. So it's interesting that a number of Ontario municipalities, the last term when this bill was introduced, and this term continue to object to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So pending those two taken out, can we accept the rest of the consent reports? Can I get a mover and a second? Councillor Campbell and Councillor Lockett, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. 8.2, sorry, 8.2 is staff report 09/2023. Maintenance operations. This is for information only, but is there anything in there that you'd like to discuss? I know it was a topic of conversation in the social media the last couple of weeks, but you know, kudos to our director of operations and all the fine men that work in that group, ladies and gentlemen, I should say, that work there. They did a great job and they've done they worked all weekend, last weekend, and all through the week, through the nights to get it cleaned up, and it looks really good. So do we want to go over that staff report, Matthew, or is it just for council's knowledge? And
If they want to discuss it, then all means, but.
okay. Is there any, okay. Councillor McConnell and Councillor Campbell.
I don't have a discussion here, but I suggested by email that this be brought to council because we do have 4 new people on council that have had nothing to do with the snow maintenance or winter maintenance policies. And most of this was approved before yourself was on council last term. So I thought it was important, given the amount of comments, shall we say, that we have received either on the street or on the phone or over social media, that our newer people were aware of what our policy actually was, so that if they did have questions asked of them, they could answer them intelligently. And I think this does this quite nicely. I'm not sure just if putting it up here serves the purpose of those people who are complaining, who might be watching from home eventually. But the fact that it is printed here, it will be printed on our Facebook, will it not, or on our town website?
it will be under the agenda as well as the minutes.
Okay, good. So it served its purpose that way. I think if I can just comment on one thing, the most number of complaints that I heard and saw was the snowbanks on King Street over a period of time. And I was here when the winter road clearing program was introduced, and it is subject to a little bit of finagling simply because it's not like grass. You don't cut it once a week. We know that in the summer, we cut the grass once a week. In the spring, probably every 2 weeks in August. Snow isn't like that. You never know when it's going to come. And we do have a snowbank height at which we remove the snowbanks. But there is some flexibility there. If we are expecting a storm, which is going to give us an additional amount of snow in a short period of time, it doesn't make sense to clear those snowbanks for $6,000 to $10,000 a trip. It makes sense to wait and do the whole thing at once. Unfortunately, with the snowbanks we had on King Street that we got complaints about, there was a storm that was scheduled to hit us the very next weekend, and we got sweet bugger all out of it. We didn't get much snow. However, there were 2 storms then after that one, which were scheduled to hit, and they did. So did we do the right decision? I guess it depends on who you talk to. We saved ourselves tens of thousands of dollars. And when May comes, nobody's going to remember it. But when May comes, we will have those tens of thousands of dollars that we can use to replace sidewalks, to fix streets. It's a decision that is made at the time. Nobody's going to say it's right or wrong, but a decision that has to be made. It was made, and they have removed the banks now, and they're well on the way to removing them. So I will take as much responsibility for that, having instituted this program or having contributed to it, as anybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that anyone that has questions about it, they have access to this. They can see it. They can see our guidelines, our priorities, and what we use. What I think a lot of the people that are making comments fail to realize is we have a limited number of staff, and it takes all of them to do removal. So when we have all of them working through the night, we don't have anyone for the next day. So if there's snow in the forecast, guess what? We can't plow the street. So if we're taking a time, it's not because we're being negligent, it's because we're being, fiscally responsible for one, but also aware of our employees, their hours, and how much time they're putting in. So, we can sit and complain about it all we want, but we have to thank them for what they do, for working through the night and working all weekend, like I said. So thank you. Councillor Campbell?
Oh, just to say that people I've talked to on the street, the work did not go unnoticed. Like everyone was really, really pleased that once all this social media was out there, and then we just hopped to and did more clearing, and they're very, very pleased. So.
Thank you. Councillor Burton and Matthew Armstrong.
Matthew can go. Go ahead, Matthew.
I did want to address some of the comments on Facebook in that things were perhaps going on behind the scenes, or that they pushed the town into doing additional work. All of that is a false narrative. The individuals decided to pick and choose communications that they'd had over the last several months or several years and create a falsehood of timelines, events, and how things occur. So I want to state to council that we follow the policy, we look at the weather, we determine what is the best way that we can address safety concerns, removing snowbanks, making sure that streets and sidewalks are clear, and then to think that somebody was able to change that, it is just simply false. So.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Councillor Britton?
Thank you. You actually took some of the words out of my mouth, which is fabulous. It's all about educating yourself. You know, if there's a snowbank, are you going to hop over that snowbank or are you going to walk 5 steps down and use the crosswalk? Right? You have to be smart. And the people that were complaining, you know, I'm sorry to say, pick up a shovel and help out. And educate yourself on the policies and procedures that we have for the town. We just don't hop to it when somebody complains. It's like Mr. Armstrong said, there's policies and procedures in place, not only for our residents, but it's also for our staff. So you need to follow these policies and procedures, and we did the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor
Just to pick up on something that Councillor Burton said, pick up a shovel. I was in business for many years in downtown Prescott and Brockville throughout the winter. And what you did was you picked up a shovel and you cleared away from the front of your store, you cleared away from the door, you made sure the sidewalk in front of your business was clear, and you shoveled a path in from the street if there were snowbanks. If you're in business, you present as good a face to the public as you possibly can. You make it as easy to access as you possibly can. So if we have people who own buildings or who have businesses who are complaining about snowbanks, as you so well put it, pick up a shovel and provide some access. That snowbank isn't going to be there forever. Chances are it's not going to be there for any more than a couple of weeks. And it's just imperative. This is Canada. It's winter. We all have to deal with it. And sometimes it's easier to deal with than others. So that was a very good point about the shovel. Thank you.
It's all about helping your neighbors.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Absolutely.
Councillor Lockett?
I just wanted to add to that the parking lot, the town parking lot that has easy access to shoppers was bare. But people still insisted on parking on the street, trying to climb over a bank or walk through a path that was slippery when the whole parking lot was bare. So that's a little bit harder to handle the complaints when that's right there.
I think there was also a narrative about, someone falling on a snowbank when, if you look into it a little further, they had a medical incident and they fell into the snowbank. So as I was telling Councillor Burton, the snowbank probably helped them. But, regardless, don't choose to climb the snowbanks. There's lots of laneways, and these are not Toronto City blocks. They're just little Prescott blocks. So we'll leave it at that unless you want to chime in there, do you?
I do, I guess, because I will say that prior to being on council, I approached Mayor Shankar a few times about the service downtown and around the post office, right? Let's not forget that a lot of our residents are seniors, right? I would love to see some kind of cooperation or something with the BIA, and a private contractor to possibly open up some of the banks. I don't know if that falls under the BIA's
Criteria.
allowed use of funds, but that may be something that they look at, that they could contribute to opening up so many sections of the banks. So when we say walk 5 feet, I think of my grandmother that used to go to the bank, right? And she probably could not park in a parking lot because she would have probably hit 3 cars pulling in and backing out, right? So parking on the street for her was critical, right? And finding a spot was probably tough at times because it is busy during the day, and then having to walk 5 to 15 feet down the road, right? While some vehicles are traveling through, we don't have stoplights or anything like that to slow some of the vehicles down on some of these stretches of road. Right? I think there's an opportunity to always try to address concerns, right? And be open-minded. And I think, some people got carried away, but I also think, that a little bit of feedback keeps everybody in check sometimes, right? And that goes for the downtown business owners and possibly, us as council.
Good point. Good point, Justin. Thank you. Anything else on this lovely subject? Hopefully we have no more snow the rest of the winter. I don't think that's gonna happen. Okay, we're gonna move on to committee reports. We have a PAC report, 01-2023, SPC 990 Edward Street. Chair of PAC to read this, or do you want me to read this? I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Young, who's the chair of PAC, to read the recommendation.
Okay, the recommendation that council endorse the approved site plan application SPC 2021-05, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the balance of any outstanding taxes, including penalties and interest, and any local improvement charges, if applicable, shall be paid to the town. Two, that a construction phasing plan that is acceptable to the town and addresses the parking for staff and contractors throughout the construction project. And three, that the site plan agreement of the land shall be registered and submitted to the town.
Great, thank you. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that report? Moved by Councillor Kirkby, seconded by Councillor Young. Any discussion on this committee report? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Number 10 is mayor. I know there's a joint services committee meeting tomorrow. They're discussing budget. The initial budget was an 18% raise. Going into the meeting tomorrow, it's down to around 10.7%. We'll see if we can keep chopping away at that, but it's probably as close as it's going to get. Sorry, Matt, I didn't read your synopsis of that.
So for the town of Prescott, I believe it was 15% individual to us, and then now it's down to just shy of 9%.
Oh, good. My numbers are a bit off. That's better though. That's good. 9%. I already said thanks to everybody, so we're good there. 11 is outside boards, committees, and commissions. Any submissions there? No submissions? So we're going to move on. Oh, sorry, Councilor Burton.
Shaker. I think it's important when we get to that part, that, just to let people know, we do go to a lot of meetings. We were all at Roma. We attend, different committee meetings and stuff. And it's just streamlining our council meetings a little bit more, because sitting around the table and I might talk for half an hour in all the meetings that I go to, and then it goes to Mary and so on and so forth. We're just trying to streamline the meetings a little bit more, but we all attend all different meetings. I have 3 this week alone, so. So just for people at home.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not going over every meeting
Right.
we go to, but we're busy out there, and I'm not one that posts everything online. I just do it, but
Yep.
I think we're all like that.
Yeah.
So far. But thanks for bringing that up, Councilor Burton. So we have a number of staff reports today. We have 4 staff reports. The first one is 12.1, staff report 10-2023, review of anti-noise and licensing bylaws. This recommendation is asking for 3 members of council to be named in the working group. I'll let Matthew speak to this prior to moving that motion.
Thanks, Mayor. So as part of our regular review of bylaws, we noticed that the current anti-noise bylaw was last amended in 1991, and actually the basis for it is in 1981. So I was a youngin at that point, and so I think it's probably time that we updated that. The second one that we've talked about previously over the last couple of months is the licensing bylaw, and that's one that we committed to reviewing, in particular around refreshment vehicles in relation to an event last year with between Prescott Place and the gelato stand downtown. So that makes sense. We also had a project recommendation to look at business licensing for all businesses in the town of Prescott. And so that would be an opportunity for us to review that as well. So from a staff perspective, it would be myself, the manager of the bylaw, and our economic development officer to help support the working group, and then three members just trying to streamline the process so that we can review various other municipalities bylaw, bring in the place group to get their feedback, and then the interested parties that might be. And then we'll be able to bring that back to council with some recommendations and further discussion.
Great. So I'm gonna see if there are three members of council that would like to be on this committee. Councillor Young, Councillor Campbell, and Councillor Kirkby. Look over there. That's three. Does anyone else want to be on? And no, that's good. All right.
That means it's a council meeting.
Oh, sorry, I got you. Just three. That's perfect. No, I thought we could have an alternate or something like that. Oh, that three is good. Okay, so then we'll get a mover and a seconder on that. Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor McConnell. All in favor? Good. Okay, next staff report is 11-2023, the River Route Transit Service Partnership. The motion reads that council directs staff to provide written notice to the River Route Transit Service partners of Prescott's intent to renew the partnership agreement for April 1st, 2023 until March 31st, 2024. Just for discussion purposes, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Kirkby, seconded by Councillor Young, and then we'll start the discussion. Matthew, you want to talk on this?
So you is we committed to doing the partnership agreement on a yearly basis. And if one of the partners no longer wishes to continue with the program, then they need to let the other partners know by February 28th. So we wanted to make sure that we had the year's worth of data before coming to council. And as you can see, in 2022, we spent a total of about $167,000. Of that, each municipality was responsible for a little over $25,000. We generated $19,258 in fare revenue, and then the estimated gas tax revenue for that period, which is 75% of the municipal contribution, and the fares would contribute $500. So each municipality agreed to put forward $30,000 in support of it, and as you can see, we were able to fit within that for a yearly basis. We took a look at the 2023 amount, looking at salaries, fuel, and maintenance, and increasing amounts there to make sure that it's covered in the budget. Again, $30,000 would be sufficient to be able to cover that by all three municipalities. And knowing that the Edwardsburg Cardinal, I believe, is also discussing it this evening. So all three municipalities are presenting very similar reports, and just not 100% sure when Augusta will be taking theirs. We are also pleased to note that we're continuing to see an increase. And so in Q4, we had an average of 19.5 rides per day. And our cost per ride is continuing to decrease, which was part of the continuous improvement commitment that we had as part of our agreement. So we also noted from City of Brockville that they haven't returned to their pre-pandemic levels for their ridership. They decreased between 2022 and 2021. but they expect to see a further increase this year, and we were conservative at the 5% to be able to do our calculations. By far, the most popular spots that we have are on King Street. And this year or in the course of the last quarter, added one at Walker House and then also at the Clock Tower parking lot. So all either start or stop in the three partnering municipalities. 27% of them start and stop at on King Street here in Prescott. Also, the second most popular is Village Square Mall in Cardinal. So that's my report, and we're happy to answer any questions that might be.
Thank you, Matthew. Any questions for Mr. Armstrong? Councillor Campbell?
Does it cost money to add more stop?
As long as we're not adding to the total length of the route. And so actually what we did in anywhere where it's 50 kilometers and less, you can actually, it's a flag down service. So as long as you make clear eye contact with the bus driver and you made specific and it's along the route, then you're okay. So we noticed in the last 2 months of the year that somebody is using like a pickup, or I believe it's a drop off at South Grenville High School on a daily basis. And so we've instituted that. So really that's, we've been able to create that flexibility. As long as it's on the route, it's not a problem. If we're starting to veer off the route to create more stops, then we're at our max at this point in terms of the length of the route and the time it's taking. So as long as we're not diverging from our current route, then you can stop pretty much anywhere along it.
I'm just thinking of the new arena and people downtown that might want to go up and use the walking track or go skating, but I don't.
So that might require us to adjust how we come in and out of Prescott. So it might require us to stop at Walker House, go up Sophia, or something like that. Then cut across, go up, down, bring it back down to King Street, and then go out. So there's minor changes we can make, but absolutely, I think your note is a good one and one that we'll want to try to incorporate into it.
Thank you.
Anyone else for Councillor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. The idea of having mass transit, which essentially is what this is, pay for itself, is just a non-starter. It doesn't happen. This is showing as Matthew mentioned, despite the fact that it's a long way off paying for itself, it is getting marginally closer each quarter. If you look at the contributions from our municipalities, Brockville, of course, is contributing the bus, the driver, and maintenance, and I think the insurance as well. Augusta, Prescott, and Edwardsburg Cardinal are each contributing $30,000. 51% of the ridership is coming from Prescott, and if you looked at that 90,000 as a ridership owing, really our share should be about $45,000. It's only 30. It's kind of a bargain as I see it. When you look at it that way right now, I don't have any problem voting to contribute this experiment. The big crux is going to come when we have to buy a bus. Right now, we're using old City of Brockville buses, which are still serviceable. If the day comes when we cannot use a Brockville City bus, and we have to look at the replacement of a bus, we're probably looking at a couple $100,000.
Surprisingly enough, a bus is about 150,000, 160,000. Me personally, I was shocked to find out that because you can buy much larger vehicles that do a lot less and spend a whole lot more. So There is a federal program that runs to 2028 that will pay for 80%, in particular rural type routes, and that's funding we would go after. So one of the things that we're trying to do is in a couple of years where we're underspending by the 30,000, putting that money into a reserve, and then that will help pay for our 20% when we get there.
Thank you. So to me, what we should be discussing with Brockville, if at some point in time, which is probably going to happen, we have to buy a new bus. Brockville's contribution right now is the bus and the driver and the maintenance. So their contribution is going to have to change if the unit as a whole is buying a bus. So what in that case is Brockville prepared to contribute? And I think that is a reasonable question and something that we should be talking to Brockville ahead of the time that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Kirkby?
Yes, I'd like to just make note, please, Councillor McConnell, don't be sharing that kind of, we're not paying our share information while we're live. Or your opinion on that, please. Just joking. But I think it's a really good program. I'm just looking at the schedule. It looks like it leaves Cardinal at 6:30 is the first time. And I'll be honest, I have not looked at the schedule more than twice. But I'm wondering, is the River Route group approaching the manufacturers along the route in Brockville to take advantage of this? Because we all know there's a need for workers. Some of these workers come from different agencies, whether it be manpower or whatever services the employee services there is, temporary services. I'm just wondering, is that being communicated to some of these facilities, i.e. 3M, Leclerc, Ingredion, right, to take advantage to get employees there? And then I'm wondering, is there, I don't see anywhere where there's any sponsorship money or any private money thrown into this on this budget. And is that something that's there and we just don't see it here, or is there no advertising?
No, so that's something that as we move into 2023, we want to address. So we've been kind of in the first 16 months just getting ourselves going and established. Our next step is to start to look at the sponsorship side of things and that. When it comes to the manufacturers, they have noted that they normally run 12-hour shifts, and the fact that we start at 5:30 in the morning to try and get people back to Rockville, if you're out in Cardinal by 7:30, is precluding us being able to run into the evening. So we'd have to run another 4 hours in order to capture both shift changes, but certainly something that as our numbers improve, then we'll be able to put more resources behind it to get that extra 4 hours, because then we're talking about basically adding another 33% to the overall cost.
Right. Which could provide workers from Brockville to Prescott also, right, in the Ingredion. I think it's a great program, and to see the rides, right, what I have noticed driving along Highway 2 is the amount of people on the side of the road, either walking or hitchhiking, has dramatically dropped with the river route. And it's good to see people actually at the stations when you drive by, right? So to me, the program's working, and it's one of several programs that we offer that we don't look to make money on, but to offer our residents.
Matthew, is there, thank you, Councillor. Matthew, is there any, I get a lot of questions about expanding the river route, whether we're going east or north. Is that something that maybe we can look at or we can entertain a little bit going for the future?
So a couple of things with that. One, I think we're at a point now where we expect to have those conversations. It would be really also incumbent upon those municipalities to understand what that's going to look like and cost as we head more to the east. So I think, starting that conversation, understanding what that could look like, can you get to Morrisburg? Can you get to Council? Those types of things. But as soon as you add another bus to it, and if you're going to be running 12 hours a day, so multiply that by 2. So, that's where things can quickly escalate in terms of cost. But absolutely, if there's some way that we can take advantage of resources, perhaps if North Grenville already has a bus and things like that, then maybe that's an opportunity to feed into the system.
Right. There's a lot of X factors that we don't know, right? What they may have and what they may be willing to contribute, because we've kind of laid the seed down with Augusta and Edwardsburg Cardinal to make this happen now. If they're going to join on, they're going to have to contribute as well. Okay, thank you. Anyone else on this one? No? Okay. All right. That was just sorry. I guess I'll call the question. All in favor on that one? Carried, thank you. 12.3 is staff report 12-2023. Operational budget, environmental planning, water and wastewater. This is all you, Matthew.
Thank you very much. So we're just going to kind of walk through what we're going to talk about this evening, which is the budget timelines, the environmental side, planning, economic development and tourism, and then water, wastewater. So in terms of timelines, we're now on February 6th, and those are the three items that we're covering. Next meeting on February 27th, we'll be talking about the revenue side, as well as prioritizing the project list. So for environmental services, it includes storm sewers, waste collection, waste disposal, waste diversion. And so storm sewers, really there's two components of this. One is putting amount in reserves, which is 43,000. And then there's another amount in there for cleaning the storm sewers. So we break up the town into 4 quadrants so that we can clean the storm sewers every 4 years, one in each quadrant per year. And that makes sure that it keeps flowing. And so there can be a lot of debris that builds up in them. And so that's certainly something that we focus on. In particular, in the spring, we clean out a sector to get all of the grit and grime and sand that goes into the storm sewer out of the catch basins. When we look at waste collection, that's the amount that we pay for it to be picked up, as well as the bag tags. We're going through over 150,000 bag tags per year at this point. And then at the same time, there's also a mountain there for, I believe, education and printing calendars and things like that. Waste disposal, so every metric ton that is collected is taken to Waste Management in Brockville and per ton fee for dropping that off. And then waste diversion is our recycling program. That's the amount to pick it up. Also, a couple of years ago when the market collapsed for recyclables, both for fiber and for containers, every single ton that we pick up now has a tipping fee to put it into the recycling system. So that's what you're seeing here is a total increase over those 3 budgets of about 6.9%. Our agreement for waste collection, disposal, and diversion is all tied to the consumer price index. And so it's an increase of 26,000 for budget to budget. And in last year, we picked up 832 tons of waste and 215 tons were recycled. So any questions on that?
Yeah, if I may. Waste diversion, Matthew, 215 tons recycled. I have to be curious here because I walk the dog a lot and we walk on recycling day and just my dog always stops at people's recycling box. I don't want to pee on it. Garbage bag, yeah, that's okay, not a recycling box. But while I'm standing there watching him sniff, I can't help but watch what people put in. And the average recycling box, according to the list of what we recycle, has stuff in it that is not recyclable. And as I understand it, if you contaminate a load, it's then garbage, not recycling. So do we know, do we pay extra on the days that this is picked up according to
So every time it goes to waste management, that's the recycling depot that we use. They take a look at the load, determine if it's overly contaminated or not. And if it is, then they wouldn't accept it. I can say that all of our loads were accepted last year, and even with the contamination rate. But when it comes to, can't remember which one it is, but one of them is almost the same price as tipping it. To be perfectly honest, to put it into the recycling system. So it's quite a shock from where we were in the 1990s, where collectors were paying by the ton to pick it up, to not receiving anything, to now having to pay. But to the best of my knowledge, none of our loads were rejected last year.
Okay, thank you. And if I may, I had a second question. The cost of recycling was supposed to be going to be loaded onto the people who were providing the material to be recycled. Where is Ontario with that?
So 2023, January 1st was Toronto was transitioning. Then other large major municipalities are transitioning in January 1st, 24. And other municipalities, everyone else, including us, is January 1st, 2025. So with that, the town will be no longer responsible for picking it up. It may or may not be the same collector, but it will have a separate agreement with the organization that's responsible. So the manufacturer organization that is responsible for it. So if the town was to continue, then we're responsible for contamination rates, things like that. And that's not something that we want to be particularly involved in. So we would much rather just divest ourselves of the entire thing. And that's what we're proceeding towards.
So if, on the same line, if I may, so if we're not responsible for contamination rates, and if the full cost is going on to people that are buying this, then we should be able to throw just about any kind of plastic in, or just about any kind of paper in, or just about any kind of metal in, should we not?
I think
Recyclable metal.
I think what you'll see is when you get to 25, and the manufacturers are responsible for the contamination rates, which I believe are supposed to be much tighter than they are today. I think you'll see a lot more left at the roadside.
Mm. And that's going to go to garbage, right?
Presumed.
Eventually. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So it will have a net positive impact when we get there in 2025 of saving the municipality about $40,000 to $50,000 a year. Because it's only paid for half right now, we only receive, and then we'll be able to divest of the remainder. So just keep that in mind.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so economic development and tourism, that includes planning and economic development and tourism, and I'm going to hand it over to Nina to talk a little bit about economic development and tourism and the focus.
Thank you, Matthew. Let's go to the presentation. So I prepared just a few slides to give council kind of a broader sense of slide 1, just to give you kind of a broader overview of what economic development encompasses. So I won't take you into this in any great level of detail. That's just for information purposes. If you have any questions, I'm always available to answer any questions following the meeting. As you can see, there is quite a significant portfolio that is covered by the Economic Development Department. And I'll take you, next slide takes you into our economic development strategy. So this is really the overarching document that guides the majority of the activities that take place through economic development and the tourism department. So we developed the strategy in 2021. And we've been actively implementing it since it was formally adopted by council. So these are the 3 priorities of the strategies, which are keep businesses top of mind, continue Riverwalk revival, and attract investment, workers, citizens. Riverwalk speaks to the downtown core and that broader Riverwalk district area, which encompasses Riverwalk Park, some of those broader outlying waterfront areas that all feed into the downtown as a whole. And this will just take you, next slide brings you into some of the action plans coming out of these priorities. And the other piece of the strategy that was developed was kind of a separate subcomponent, tourism and resident attraction aspect to that, because the tourism feeds directly into economic development and it's a portfolio that is covered by this department as well. So there were separate strategies identified for tourism too. So this just takes you into some of those action plans for tourism, investment attraction, and business retention and expansion. And then some of the models that have been utilized traditionally when it comes to identifying and responding to these opportunities or securing new investment and supporting the business community as a whole. So now this brings us into the next slide is the priority number 1 of the strategy, which is keep businesses top of mind. And you'll see in the circles here, these are the objectives that are identified as part of that feed into and support this broader priority. And then there were individual actions that you'll see here on the bullet point list. And over into the table, this identifies the specific projects and works that are going to happen in 2023 to help realize some of these broader priorities and objectives that are outlined by the study. So under the keeping businesses top of mind, I won't take you through all of them, but these are just some of the highlights. Would be annual business consultations. This is an ongoing thing. This isn't something new, but it's something that we do on an annual basis. It's a touch point that we have with our business community on a one-on-one basis, just to check in, see how things are going, if there's any supports that we can provide through economic development and or tourism, depending on the type of business that they are. Economic development, tourism advisory group. This is a new recommendation this year would be to establish a group that would be essentially come together to identify activities, projects, resources to really help support economic development, tourism in Prescott. So it would really be comprised of a group of members of council, the business community, and supporting agencies and organizations, everything from Federation of Business to our local BIA to some of the employer supports that are out there. For example, CIC Consulting, the Leeds Grenville Small Business Enterprise Center, and some of the broader economic development services that are out there too, and really bringing them all in together into one group that can talk about ideas and actions to support economic development. So I thought we had kind of a semblance of this during COVID, an advisory group that was established specifically for the business community, which I thought was a really good, nice cohesive group of organizations and individuals. So it would be quite similar to that. And hopefully that's something that council would endorse. And then next we have our economic development newsletter. We've been doing a very business focused newsletter to date, but this would be a broader economic development focused newsletter, which will bring in a lot of new resources focused on investment attraction and business supports. And then we have our new Invest Prescott website, social media, which was developed this year. So I would strongly encourage you to review some of those resources. And we have our ongoing digital Main Street business support program. So that has been extended until March 2024. So that's an ongoing program funded through the provincial government that provides support, financial support for the programs, as well as the staffing coordinator to implement those programs and deliver them. And it's done in partnership with Prescott, Augusta Township, and Edwardsburg Cardinal. So we're in partnership together under what we're calling the South Grenville Digital Main Street area. And then we have our pop-ups developments. So as I'm sure that you're familiar with, we have a couple of pop-ups on the waterfront this year. We have 4 more coming, and we have 4 that are fully committed at this point, and we're just reviewing a couple other applications for the remaining 2 units. So pretty excited. We're going to see those fully occupied this year, as well as tenant at the lighthouse again, which I'll speak to a bit more under the tourism. And then we have some business networking events, workshops, some targeted sector employer attraction and supports, and just performance measure tracking and reporting. Something else that we really want to start doing a lot more within this department is tracking our performance and reporting on a more frequent basis to council. So then this brings us to the next priority, next slide, which is continue the Riverwalk revival. So this just highlights some of the specific activities that we're hoping to implement this year. CIP program enhancements. We have an amended program that's coming this year, which we're very excited to deliver to the business community and commercial property owners. And these are the two areas that are really covered in that downtown and Riverwalk district, which are the downtown core funding category, as well as the heritage conservation funding category. And then we have some placemaking initiatives that we're really, this is something that's going to not only support business, but tourism in tandem. So these are initiatives that are really focused on making the downtown a more vibrant, active, inviting place, having different activations going on that really make the downtown a more livable, appealing place for both residents and visitors coming through. So we have our parklets, which are patio spaces that we're purchasing and going to be installing in the downtown, 2 locations that will actually be installed in existing parking space areas. So the parking spaces will be transitioned into little parklets, which will be essentially just public spaces for people to come in, sit, enjoy. Maybe they've got something takeout from one of our local restaurants and they're looking for a place to enjoy it and take a little break in between shopping or just exploring the downtown as a whole. So we're really trying to provide these placemaking initiatives to support that. Promenade is another thing that we started last year. So it took place over the period of 2 long weekends. We're looking for council support to expand it this year and have it operate on Edward Street between King and Water Street for every weekend through May to September, essentially Victoria Day weekend to Labor Day weekend. And it would feature every weekend. Some weekends it would feature some different activations and things going on, whether it be entertainment, special vendors. As you may recall, last year we had during those long weekends some buskers and other fun events happening. And then we would also, as part of the promenade, if endorsed by council, we would also like to propose relocating the farmers and crafters market from the parking lot in Shoppers Drug Mart, the clock tower lot as we called it, over to the new promenade site. We saw a lot of success with this last year during the 2 long weekend installations that we ran. And the farmers market vendors, feedback from them was overwhelmingly positive, as well as the business community as well. It just really seemed to tie in better with the downtown and the businesses. It encouraged people to explore the downtown more, brought a lot more traffic into the farmers market itself. And we were also able to attract a different mix of vendors to that area and in comparison with the traditional market that was taking place on the Saturday. So I think it really helped us elevate the market, bring a new mix of products and services in that aren't normally offered at the other site while still retaining the existing vendors. So we were pretty excited about the new option and we would love to see council endorsement for that to carry on moving forward. And then just some of the other placemaking initiatives in the downtown that we're hoping to pursue is some art installations, whether that be murals on some of the vacant walls that we have in the downtown, art installations through some of the alleys. We've got a couple of really cool little alleyways that we would like to maybe, beautify a little bit. Again, make it a more vibrant, appealing place for people. And then we have our vacant building registration bylaw. So that was approved by council and is being implemented quite effectively based on my understanding and regular correspondence with the building and bylaw department. I think we're seeing some movement on those properties in a lot of areas that are going to result in some new commercial tenants in the downtown. So really excited to see that moving forward. We have new downtown decorative lighting coming in for seasonal lighting. It's going to be lighthouses. We're just actually deciding on the lighting color scheme, but they are under construction as we speak. So they will be seasonal, essentially year round outside of the Christmas period where we have our snowflake lights up. As soon as they come down, these lighthouse pole mounted lights will go up and just add a nice ambiance to the downtown throughout the season. So we're really looking forward to seeing those installed. And then we have some cycling, diving, and pedestrian amenities, really just continuing to build on that. We've added a number of amenities in 2022, including bike repair stations, some new diving amenities, and we're hoping to bring some new signage in this year, as well as some other organized tours to help support that, and really looking to our regional neighbors as well to hopefully expand that out, because we do have cycling and diving amenities, especially with our neighbors in Augusta to the west. And then looking to build partnerships with existing event organizers. We've got some fantastic properties here, and we're really primed for hosting a variety of events, whether it be sports tourism, waterfront-based events, other general interest events, food-related festivals. The opportunities are really limitless. So we're really working to try and attract a new mix of those type of events, and one of which I'm hoping to be able to announce very soon. And then we're partnering, another recommendation is partnering with the Canadian Coast Guard on some downtown beautification as part of some signage and wayfinding strategies that we're hoping to implement. New directional signage for businesses and attractions, as well as fun sidewalk wayfinding decals that will really help tie in the downtown as a whole. It's a lot of visitation tends to focus on that 2-block core of the downtown. We're really hoping to expand that out and remind people that the downtown does extend beyond that. We've got some great mix of businesses throughout. And then visitor center ongoing development, of course, we opened that last year. We're planning on some, just constantly improving that space and bringing new experiences in for visitors that do happen to pop in, as well as enhanced visitor tracking. And then that brings me to the third priority, which is attract investment workers and citizens. As you'll see, the key objectives are there, and some of the activities for this year proposed are public available land and property database. We always maintain an internal one, but I'm hoping to go public with that this year, just so it can be more of a hands-on resource to potential developers as well as property owners. And then looking at conducting some retail tourism business gap analysis to help with our investment attraction and identification of the best business opportunities that are well suited for Prescott that would fit within the existing business mix. CIP program enhancements, these are some of the areas that cover the broader community that we're really hoping to continue to build, new funding and marketing focused around that. Workforce attraction development supports, residential development attraction. New resident welcome wagon is another initiative that we'll be launching this year in partnership with our new mayor. And resident attraction marketing as well. And river route growth and marketing, economic development also is responsible for marketing in partnership with our river route partners. So that's something we'll be actively working towards again this year. And then that brings us into the tourism focus of the priorities and some of the action plans for this year. So as I mentioned, signage, one of which is the wayfinding signage and sidewalk decals that I just described. Our TAWs, billboards, which are tourism-oriented directional signs. Those are the 401 signage and billboards that you see. It's the blue and white signs. We have a few of them that promote Prescott's attractions, one for the marina, one for the downtown Riverwalk District, and we're bringing a new one in for the Museum and Visitor Center this year. So there'll be a new sign on the 401. And we're also replacing our billboard signs. You've probably seen them. They're a much larger billboard with the picture. One headed eastbound has the Fort Wellington on it. The one headed westbound has the marina. And then we have one on Highway 2, which is Shakespeare Festival. So we're replacing all 3 of those this year. 2 of those are required through TODS. You have to upgrade them every 5 years. So they will be done on the 401, and then the one on Highway 2 we're replacing at our own cost. just because they're all at our cost, but on our own accord. Because it's not actually managed through the province, but it's a sign that we put up at the same time that we did the 401 Tots billboard. So we'll have some nice refresh signage on the 401 this year that we're really looking forward to. And then we have our scuba dive park, looking at adding a map this year of the underwater park. So it will show divers and visitors what is actually there under the water and some of the amenities and things that are there for the divers to explore. Visitor data tracking is something that we're really working on this year through hopefully some Wi-Fi geo-tracking tools. And a new smartphone application development, that's something that we have been talking about for a while, but we are finally ready to move forward this year now that we've got some other initiatives under our belt. So this is a really interesting, it's an application where essentially would be set up, you could download it through the Apple Store. It's just like a smartphone application that when you come into the community, it's an experiential tourism app. So you can learn about the town, check out the map, find amenities. It will have all of our businesses on there, different tourism attractions, everything from accommodations to parking to, whatever real amenity you're looking for while you're here. And there would also be a rewards system associated with that. So as people explore the community, they would get rewarded for spending more time and engaging with the different businesses and assets and accumulate rewards that could be then translated into Prescott dollars or swag that we would give out at the visitor center and museum. So it's really, an effort to increase engagement with people when they're in the community, and hopefully while they're here, they'll download it on their phones as well, and maybe keep it on their phones, tell their friends and family about it. And then as new people come into the community, they've got this app at their fingertips. It would also be set up at actual physical kiosks at the town hall, visitor center, the new arena, the marina, where it would be essentially that screen, the user interface with some of our promotional materials, with some suggestive text for people to go and download the app so they can essentially take it with them. So that's something that we're really excited to move forward with. And then we've got our Rotary Lighthouse visitor access that is going to be opened up to visitors again this year. Renovations are underway, and that will also be one of our pop-up sites. So it will be, I know a lot of local residents as well as visitors are very excited to see that property and take in the beautiful vistas of the St. Lawrence and the shipping that goes by. And then some of the key focus tourism development activities are cycling, diving, waterfront tourism, and the Riverwalk District. And then marketing planning, we would love to explore some new marketing. As far as budget wise, probably won't be until 2024, but we've been gradually kind of transitioning into some new branding for the community that I hope to solidify a little bit more moving forward. And then just some specialty marketing promotions, digital and specialty, our map distribution and promotion, and Prescott experience packages we're really hoping to develop and build out a bit more this year in partnership with some of our businesses and attractions. And that's it. Thank you. Sorry. Longer than expected.
So for economic development, planning and tourism, the planning budget is being recommended to increase by approximately 18,000. That has mostly to do with the increase in engineering plans that we have reviewed, as well as our work with WSP from a planning perspective. So the more plans that we review, the more cost there is associated with that. And so that's what the recommendation is there. Then economic development tourism, an increase of approximately 53,000, the vast majority of that, which is offset by Digital Main Street additional revenue to support that program. So just before we go on to water and wastewater, any questions?
Lots of questions. We're gonna start down here, Councilor Young, then probably go around the table, look for, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. When I was reviewing the budget, one question that I have is how do we measure our results from the investment with the Economic Corridor Group? So it's kind of two questions. How do we measure our results, and have we committed for 2023?
So I think that question is twofold, obviously. The first one would be, I think, be valuable to have them come in and present to council exactly the initiatives that they've done and then what that means for the region as well as the economic development corridor. The second one is you have to give a year advance notice if you're not intending to. So I believe at this point we are committed for 2023, and then if there's discussion, if you want to discontinue, then we would have to give basically 12 months notice.
Okay. Sorry, could I just one at that? So are they, like, do you find them to be a collaborative partner? Like, do they keep us up to date on what they're doing?
I think they have a lot of balls in the air, and so I think definitely from the clerk standpoint, they did a lot of work with that, trying to bring that forward. They've had other successes. They've have been working on trying to see if they can attract someone to the Augusta Vista site and the areas there. I think communication can always be improved regardless of the relationship. And I think, as we continue to work and strive together, that we continue to build on that relationship.
Thank you.
Councillor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. My question is in regard to pop-ups and the lighthouse. Dana, you mentioned that you already have a commitment for 4 of them, was it? And the lighthouse? Is there a requirement for standard hours to operate these things or what?
Yes, so we do require at minimum that they're open from Thursday to Sunday. And we do request that they open 7 days a week.
And hours?
Hours generally 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. are the required hours for their opening periods, Thursday to Sunday.
Okay. The reason I asked is because I had heard a lot of complaints about the lighthouse last summer that, you used to always see people wandering around with ice cream. Halftime at Shakespeare, people would go and get ice cream. There would be a lineup. You couldn't serve that many. This year, no, people were complaining about it. So 8 o'clock, the show starts at 7, goes to 9, 8 o'clock doesn't cut it. They need to be open till 8:15 anyway.
So if I can, we do have
Yes, I know, at the Marina building. Is that what you're
no,
saying?
with the tenant. So we always we provide them with a list of events at the outset of the season.
Right.
And we do recommend that they do increase their hours during those periods. And I can tell you that the lighthouse tenant last year did increase her hours whenever Shakespeare was open and stayed open until at least the intermission was generally what they strived for. It was also a bit of a test pilot last year, so they weren't required to maintain those specific 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. hours. That is required for the 2023 season, based on some of those learning lessons from the initial pilot year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lockett?
Thank you. So Dana, I think you were well into your presentation, and I think I finally heard the word sports once. Now, for me, tourism, a big attraction to this town for tourism, to me, is the sports, because they bring in the hundreds and hundreds of people. The soccer brings in a lot, and now we haven't had the rink, but the tournaments bring in a lot, and those people spend a lot of money in town, and it seems like everything is geared away from those events. Like, I don't live downtown, I don't have a business downtown. So it seems like everything pretty much is geared on a 1 street, 2 street thing. And I think we're really missing the boat if we don't do something to really work with the sports that are in town.
And I think that's why it was identified as one of those key sectors. We've got the sports tourism, diving, cycling, and riverwalk, as well as the waterfront. And the sports tourism is one of those areas where, to your point, without having that recreation center, it's not something that we've really been able to pursue a lot over the past few years, but that's why this year and moving forward, I think it absolutely needs to be a critical priority because it's a huge opportunity that we can be capitalizing on with the new multi-recreation complex. Not just the arena itself, but again, to your point, the soccer, all of the recreation fields, like there are significant opportunities there that we can really start to build on and grow.
And further to that, your diving isn't necessarily set up for divers. And I wondered why you hadn't included a dive flag or something on your Todd sign on the 401.
Dive flag.
Well, you just need you don't have anything to bring them
No, I
into
see what you
town.
mean.
So if you just had the symbol on your sign.
So there's certain things that to actually qualify, it actually has to be operated and staffed to qualify as for the Todd signage. So as much as we've got this dive park and this amazing asset, unfortunately, it just doesn't fit within the eligibility requirements for us to actually get a sign until it's staffed and open. I think it needs to be 3 days a week. Like there's certain very specific parameters for every type of attraction. So
Okay.
it would be lovely to get an actual dive operator again that would have them, and then we could actually include that. Because it's something unique.
It can be very, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkett. Councillor Burton?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So I have a few questions. Building partnerships with existing event organizers. So say I'm an organizer of, I'll use my co-ed hockey for Prescott Blades, and I want to do a fundraiser. And I'm thinking of this really good idea of bringing in food trucks. And how do I go about doing that? Because you're saying building partnerships. So would the organizers reach out to you and say, this is what I want to do? How can you help me?
Ideally, and it would go also both ways, that we
Right.
would actively be recruiting, trying to attract some of these third-party events, basically, that we deem to, have potential tourism value to them. There's also a whole plethora of events. You kind of have two essentially arms. You've got your community events and then your tourism visitor events. And your community events are more the local ones that are intended to really serve that local population. Your tourism ones are the ones that bring anyone from outside, essentially a 50-kilometer radius to so that's really how we would kind of differentiate between those two and really focusing our efforts on attracting some of those broader, third-party events that have that tourism visitation aspect that's going to bring people into the community, whether it be sports tourism, whether it be a waterfront event, some sort of regatta, whether it be a food truck festival. And if that's in partnership with a nonprofit organization that's looking to raise money for their activity, great. Like those are the ideal partnerships that we're really trying to support because, again, we've got the assets, but we may not always necessarily have the resources or the capacity to be the driver of the events, but we sure can facilitate them. And that's really where we're trying to at least transition things.
And I think some great examples is the approved trade show. So they came with concepts, said, this is what we want to do. We worked with them, and there's a lot of extra stuff that we work with them on to develop and that sort of thing. Another Shakespeare, obviously, we provide the venue, but then all of the logistics and that sort of thing. Then the Folk Fest as well. There again, they came, they've been developing that over the last couple of years. We have a venue and then we're able to help with some of the logistical side. So anytime that there's a community group that wants to reach out and say, I have this idea, and how can the municipality, and really we have facilities, we have space, those types of things, that is what we can provide. What we don't necessarily want to do is if you have an idea and then dump it on our lap and then just kind of walk away is just an unreasonable expectation. And so that's where, building those partnerships and making sure that those organizations know that they can reach out and then have that discussion, and then that's perfect.
That's perfect. Thank you. I just wanted Dana to explain it a little bit better because there's so many opportunities. Right? There's so many opportunities. I do have a couple more questions. You're talking about the app, and is anywhere in the app that if I'm thinking about moving to Prescott and I'm driving through and think, oh, I should download the app and maybe we could have like a welcoming to Prescott, these, like a little welcome package that they could go through the app too, right?
And so you led me into one of the critical pieces to that app that I forgot to touch on is that's really the benefit of it more than anything. Yes, you can learn about your businesses and explore this map and find out about all these different amenities and things going on, but we can also have different experiences or, information topics that are set aside as part of this app. So you would have essentially a menu of, maybe you're interested in walking tours. Maybe you want to learn more about the history. Maybe you're a new resident. Maybe you're a new business. And these different things would be set up in a way that whatever it is that you're looking for, you can quickly get that information at your fingertips and delve down. And it's really an immersive app, and it can be used for a multitude of things, not just tourism visitation per se. So it really does have, there's many facets that it could take with when you're looking at your actual audience and who you're trying to speak to and get some messaging out to.
Thank you. And I have just one more. You were talking about the Todd signs and new signages in town. The signs that are by the cemetery and Highway 2, those little circle signs, and I'm not too sure what they're called. Are we replacing those?
There's three of them.
By the medical center, there was one by the medical center, one by the cemetery. Okay, actually, I think Matthew, perhaps you could speak to those.
So the intention is not to replace them. A lot of that information and the organizations that were on it were outdated. So we took the signage, moved it to, I believe, the Leo, so that they're still there. There's opportunities to kind of replace it with something else. We just don't know what that looks like yet. So moving to a slightly different concept. I think that was very 1980s concept, but gives us an opportunity to do something else there. We just haven't figured out what.
Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Campbell and then Councillor Kirkland.
Do you have a relationship with Port Alano?
We have a relationship with all businesses in the community, yes.
Okay, because that would be one that I would think should be promoted a lot because it's close to the highway and people don't know and they're international but they're not downtown, so they're not getting all the benefits of.
No, but they do get they certainly get the broader benefits of the marketing that we're doing as marketing the community as a whole. What happens in the downtown does tend to be more BIA centric sometimes with that marketing, but and I wouldn't ever want council to think that just because the BIA is there, that is what encompasses the business community in Prescott, because that's where the economic development department comes in, and we are truly out supporting and marketing all businesses in the community. So maybe if they aren't always included in some of those BIA driven promotions, doesn't mean that they aren't being included in the broader economic development picture. Same with all of the other businesses that we have that are outside of that downtown core area.
Just, it's so unique.
It is, yeah.
And it's not, one of arts and crafts stores or it's just so unique. I don't know if you can highlight different businesses at certain times or. And that would get people off the highway to just even go to that.
For sure. And we will certainly, these opportunities, things like the directional signage program, that's something that will be opened up to all businesses, including Port Alano, to participate in as well. So that's, one of those economic development initiatives that isn't just geared to the downtown core per se. It's really meant to promote all businesses in the community. And, we certainly suggest, because it really is, it's a destination business, and there's very few businesses that are destination in nature and will really attract people in from, hundreds of miles, for example, versus being more of a convenience business. So we've certainly looked at, we're exploring new opportunities as well for some of those outlying businesses to, maybe look at some cross promotion with some existing businesses in the downtown, where they could have a little satellite display of some of their products and services, co-located with like businesses, like once at 426, and some cross marketing. We're also exploring between some of those businesses as well, just having promotional materials on hand at each other's places of business as well. So something that we're certainly exploring more as time goes on.
Because there's no signage off of Edward towards Port Alano.
There is, yes, we have
There is.
signage on numerous streets
And King Street.
that go to Port Alano, yeah.
Okay, signage, so in the marina in the winter, there's old signs about, I don't know, pumpkin parade or anything. Can those just be taken out and you can put in, coming up, or, because I look at these.
Bulletin board?
Yeah, that.
Okay, there on the sidewalk, yes. So I think we could absolutely look at that and add some more materials. We generally collaborate with Community Service and Recreation Department on populating that bulletin board. I could certainly have a conversation with them and make sure that we get that updated with some
Yeah, it
fresh
just
content.
looks old and it just looks like we do things in the summer and not.
Not the winter. Well, that's a good point.
I know we've talked about it, but anyway, it would be nice to have a washroom facility downtown, as Merrickville does, if it's a fancy porta potty or whatever. That's just to say. I was unfortunately unable to go to the Coast Guard walkthrough, but they have that great museum in there. Is there any discussion of allowing people to get in there without booking to get in there? Has that changed?
We did talk about that, and I think they're still very restricted in what they can do from a public perspective. It tends to be more special events, things of that nature that give the public an opportunity to come in. But I know in speaking with Mr. Reese, the site manager, they're very open to exploring these in the future. And I think now that they are coming out of the pandemic, you may see some opportunities present themselves more and more.
Okay, that's good. And just finally, I'm not a fan of these green lights going ripping through town, and I find that we're just a drive through town. Even if you stop at a red light, you might look around and think, oh, there's a restaurant. So that's just my comment. I'm just not a fan of our little town being a drive through. Yeah, there's no opportunity to stop.
It's something, again, long term, but streetscaping, I think, is one of those things that can go a really long way into adding more of those traffic calming elements, when it's treatments like cobblestone treatments, little planting boulevards, more beautification, just things to distract and slow people down. I know intersections, crosswalks, those lights are certainly something that can be pretty daunting, but on an interim, I think there's certainly other things that we could look at, just with the streetscaping improvements that could really go a long way to help with some of those traffic calming measures to improve the, just slow people down and hopefully encourage them to take a little bit more of a look around. A lot of those placemaking things that we're doing, like the parklets, the art installations, those are all really meant to be hopefully slowing the traffic down and giving people an opportunity to experience what we really do have in that area.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Kirkby.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Dana, can you just, how many spaces will the parkettes take up? So you said there's two going downtown, so what's the total space taken up by them?
One each. They essentially equate to a full parking spot.
One
Yeah.
parking space, so two parking spaces total. The promenade, and I think I lost my hearing temporarily there, but there's a new proposal, and I'm just wondering, what street did you say would be closed and for how long?
So it would be Edward from King to Water, and it would be essentially every weekend from probably about Friday at 3, 4 o'clock, just to ensure that we're not disrupting any sort of deliveries that need to go on with downtown businesses. And then it would reopen by first thing Monday morning.
So it's the same location as last year?
Exact same, yeah. We're just
Sorry.
closing, expanding it to every weekend, from Victoria Day weekend to Labor Day.
And then when you mentioned alleys, I'm just wondering which alleys are you referring to?
So some of the alleys on, for example, BMO, there's one by the former Piccolo. There's also just smaller alleys that separate some of the buildings. There's a little one in between the Springer property and Seaway Physio on Center Street. There's a little one there that could really stand for some beautification. There's two others on King Street between Shoppers Drug Mart and the Grenville Investments property. Yeah. And then down a bit further, I think actually between Irving Insurance and the Circle K, or on the other side of Irving Insurance. And it's got like a couple areas where they're gated and it's just overgrown in the back, and it ends up just being a place that collects refuse, basically. So those are some areas that we would really like to propose beautifying.
So I think I've been in all them alleys at one time or another. My question is, are you proposing people walk through these alleys, or are we closing them off and beautifying?
The ones that are closed, keep them closed. There's some are private, and that's understandable, but it would just be nice if they were a bit more beautified, so that when people did walk by and they looked down that, they saw something nice instead of something offensive.
100%. I was kind of lost there. I thought maybe you wanted to paint murals on the walls and we were going to send people down. Some of them are pretty tight.
Well, and then some would, like, for example, the alley that goes down BMO, where people drive into the parking lot. That would be a perfect one where people are going down anyways in their vehicles. It could add a bit of beautification. And then really exposed walls. So you've got a lot of exposed facades of properties. O'Heavy's would be a prime example. The chiropractic property would be another example. Walkhouse is another one that's got a really great exposed wall that we would just love to add a pop of color art. Springer, there's a wall at Springer actually that we talked about doing a fun almost tourism, almost like a visitor postcard, like an interactive wall where you could sign your name. So just some fun things like that we're really hoping to explore either funding for through the, there's a Main Street Arts Project, and it could be done in collaboration with the high school arts program or independent artists as well that could be commissioned to do some work.
Perfect. I have a few more for you, so. We talked about dive operators, or you'd like to have a dive operator. So in the past, we've had dive operators down there, people running courses, right? Do we require them to, and maybe you don't know this question, by the way, so it could be asked of anybody here, but do we require insurance for them to run their programs on our property, the town property? And is there a fee that we charge them to run them courses on our property?
At this current moment, no. It's just a public facility that the SOS, Ottawa SOS chapter and the Brockville SOS. SOS stands for Save Ontario Shipwrecks. Yep. So that is essentially the group that organizes the diving training sessions and things that happen down at Riverwalk Park. It's an asset that they use in their regular operations, but it's not something that they have to rent from the town. They aren't required to obtain insurance waivers. They aren't required to notify us when they're coming. We do have a good, working relationship with them. So they'll generally, give us a heads up. They partner with the town. I think they partnered with operations last year on adding some new diving platform and a few other amenities in the dive park itself. But at this point, no, they kind of operate independently and they come in as needed.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry that my back's to you, by the way. I feel awkward putting these questions this way. So when you talk digital Main Street, I just want to be clear on what that means for everybody. So does that mean you're taking storefronts and making them accessible online shopping, exposing them more advertising, or is this more of the doors are always open because they're online?
It's kind of, yeah, it's essentially everything that you described, Justin. So it's not meant to replace brick and mortar businesses by no means. And it was really developed as a way to enhance brick and mortar businesses, to maybe find new e-commerce opportunities, new customer market share by entering into, more national global markets with advertising their businesses and having platforms on, social media and just having more of a presence. So it's really twofold. It's about having a better presence on social media and using that for your marketing and customer engagement strategies. And then for some that have that, that it makes sense to do so, to actually have that e-commerce platform too, where you can actually start conducting sales online while still having your brick and mortar business. And that's really the purpose of the program, is to support businesses to grow into some of those digital markets so that they continue to grow their brick and mortar business. And I can tell you that it's certainly been a huge benefit to a lot of the businesses, especially during that pandemic where they were closed for months at a time and they really had to pivot and find new sales channels in order to survive. And this has really been a great way for them to do that. And they found them to be useful tools in their ongoing business operations. And a lot of them are sustaining them now.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'll provide one comment and I'll ask a question. First, I'll ask the question. Have you had feedback from the store owners on the downtown light situation? I mean, the traffic flow. I know that you've suggested a couple of things, but have you had feedback directly from the store owners?
Not a formal thing. We have not initiated or requested feedback from them on a formal scale. We certainly receive, have conversations in passing, and it's certainly a mixed bag where a lot support and a lot don't. A lot have suggested some really innovative alternatives too. So, I think it's good that council is certainly taking their time and looking at all options with that program. And I think seeking ongoing feedback is certainly the best approach.
Okay, and so then I've heard a common theme here that a lot of this, and obviously it's right in the title here, continue Riverwalk revival. A lot of the items here are geared towards downtown, which, I grew up on Henry Street, so not far from downtown at all. But during these downtown initiatives, the different events that we have down there, are we doing enough to promote our businesses in the north end also? And when I think of everybody just thinks of the franchises that we have up there, Tim Hortons, McDonald's and stuff like that. But there's other small restaurants like Nick's, your Family Dollar store, the gym, there's different stuff and there's not many. Mm-hmm. But I guess my question is, are we taking any feedback from them or giving them the opportunity to participate in some of these events downtown, whether they choose to or not?
Absolutely, yeah. There's the majority of our initiatives are always geared to all businesses. So the economic development will partner with the BIA a lot on things, and I think it gives almost this misconception that promotion is geared towards the BIA solely, but that's the beauty of these partnerships, and that's why economic development and the BIA work in tandem so much, so that we can then take these promotions or activities, whatever they may be, and offer them to the rest of the business community. So we're, the businesses that you mentioned are given opportunities to participate on a regular basis, and to your point, some choose to do so and some don't. And all we can do is continue to try having those conversations and provide the supports where we possibly can.
Thank you. Thank you.
You have one more?
The
Right.
pop-ups, is there signage on them? Because the people that met last year were like, oh, there's the washroom, and they're all running down there to go to the washroom. So,
So they were new last year, they hadn't actually opened.
Okay.
So this year, all of the tenants will have an opportunity to install signage on the pop-ups themselves. And then we have town signage, pop-ups, banners and things that will be installed at the pop-ups every day so people will know what they are instead of,
will the signage be from the parking lot off of,
So it'll be throughout town. It will actually be on site as well as directional signage throughout the town.
on the actual buildings? Will it,
Yes, and that's where the tenants will install their own signage
but not where their door is?
on the buildings.
On the back of their building? So that people can see from the road what it is?
So they face, the front faces the road.
Oh, I thought they were facing the marina.
No, they face the road.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so you'll see them if you pull into that parking lot, they all open up towards you. So when they're open and operational, signage and anything would be installed. We would also suggest that they put a little sign on the back too, because you'll be able to capture all of the people at the marina and anyone that's walking by on the trail.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. You're definitely a feather in our cap for Prescott and all the businesses, and your enthusiasm and your love for this town is just, it shines through with a great presentation. You got a lot on your plate. Hopefully we get most of this going for you, but I do appreciate it. Thank you. We're still going on, eh? Come back to you.
So water and wastewater. So wastewater collection, wastewater treatment, water treatment, and then water distribution. So when we get to the water budget, it's made up of two components. There's the water treatment side, then there's the water distribution. Water treatment starts at the end of the pipe that's in the river and basically ends when it gets to the distribution system right outside the plant. The distribution system is all the pipes throughout the town, including the water tower that actually run to all of the homes and businesses. So water and wastewater revenues are required to cover the cost of operating the system as well as future capital costs. And it's not to be subsidized by property taxes. So any surplus and deficit is placed into the reserve to support future capital. So when we are taking a look at the 2023 budget, water charges make up about 1.24 million, and that's with a 3.5% increase assumed at July 1st. There's a small amount of interest. We've significantly drawn down on our reserves with the Dill Street East project that it supported, as well as it supported some of the work on Churchill Road to support the new arena. Then from the expense standpoint, we have salaries as well as allocations, supplies and services, and reserve contributions. So even with a 6.5 or 3.5% increase, our contract with Aqua to run our water treatment plant and wastewater treatment plant is tied to consumer price index, so it's going up by 6%.
Excuse me.
So only 117,000 would be being put into reserve. We're trying to space out that inflationary increase, so don't want to hit it all in one year. But inflation with how it's running right now is putting serious pressure on our water and wastewater. So when we get to wastewater budget, again, wastewater starts at the lot line running out of individuals' homes and ends at the water treatment plant. It's inclusive of, we have 4 or 5 pumping stations, sanitary pumping stations. And then it runs to the wastewater treatment plant, which starts at the last pumping station and ends with the pipe that goes back into the river. Our wastewater treatment plant is in Johnstown and you require a fair separation between the intake and the outflow. So for 2023, with a 3.5% increase at July 1st, we would be looking at just shy of $1.6 million. Interest, we have about $1.5 million in a mutual fund that's tied to equities that we expect to continue to grow. With Cardinal shares in the operation of our wastewater treatment plant, and then there's occupancy changes. So again, as I mentioned earlier, our contract to operate the wastewater treatment plant is going up by 6.9%. And you can see that we would be putting 315,000 into reserve, about 150,000 for the wastewater treatment plant and about 165 for the wastewater collection system. Those amounts help support the road reconstruction projects and is then also supported by other funding sources as we move through. So when we take a look at the total, so we're looking at about 2.9 million for 2022, moving to about $75,000 more in 2023. And that's largely due to the 3.5% increase at July 1st. And as I mentioned, all dollars that are in surplus go into reserve to help support those future projects. So that's the end of water and wastewater. Before we move on to the next slide, any questions?
Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. Matthew, given that you've said water and wastewater essentially have to pay for themselves, we have a new water tank that is going to be starting construction. Well, I don't know if it'll start this year, but it should maybe this fall. And we did receive a significant grant towards that. However, it is also significantly larger than we were originally expecting. The balance on that, how are we going to fund that?
So it could be done through a loan from Infrastructure Ontario, or we can pull additional amounts out of reserve. What we have in reserve isn't sufficient enough to bridge the whole amount. So we might require a shorter term loan to be able to pay off that over a number of years.
But the payments on the money owing is not going to be coming out of the general tax fund. It's going to be coming out of water reserves as they build up.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Matthew?
Okay. So last slide. So at this point, we are through all of our expense side. There's still a few unknowns. We still don't know exactly what joint services is going to come in at. We know that it's closer to the 80 to 90% range at this point, but that still remains to be passed and determine exactly what that will be. We still don't know what St. Lawrence Lodge levy is going to be at this point. We did receive notification late last week what the health unit will be. And it's about, I think, $1,900 less than we budgeted. So a little bit of good news there, but certainly we do have a couple of unknowns. But at this point, we're going from 10 million and going to 10.3 million, an increase of about 287,000 or 2.86% in terms of costs. That does not relate to a tax increase of 2.87% because our taxes are only about $6 million out of the total of 10. So there are additional things that as we've gone through are increasing in revenue and decreasing in revenue. So we will get to at our next meeting is where we'll focus on the fees and revenue, and then you'll have an idea of what we're looking at in terms of total on the bottom line. So that being said, I've been doing a little bit of work around what that's going to look like, and it's not catastrophic at this point. We're not going to have to find hundreds of thousands of dollars to cut, but it is kind of what council originally talked about in that 3 to 5% range. So still work to be done on that to refine it and come to a more specific number, but that's kind of where we are at this time. So we have a total budget, including water and wastewater, of about 13.3 million, and that is in relation to a budget which is shy of 13 million in 2022. So also, I believe council requested more information on Waterhouse as well as the library, and we will bring those back most likely in one of the meetings in March. Just from a timing perspective, we're trying to get that figured out, and then that's kind of as we're moving forward. So when we go to the final slide, the next meeting on February 27th, we'll talk about revenue and taxation, project prioritization, and the new recreation complex and its effect on the 2023 budget. So we're looking obviously in the second half of the year to open that. And there's some things that we'll have from our revenue and expense side that we'd like to bring forward for contemplation by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. Any other follow-up questions for Matthew? Seeing none, we can move on. Thank you. All right. Our next one is 12.4, staff report 13-2023, Marina dock replacement project, request for tender results for F and fuel dock. This is all you, Nathan, I think?
Yeah. Thank you. Good. Through you, Mayor. So in November, we had a report come to council that was asking for council to direct staff to issue a request for tender to remove and replace the existing F dock and fuel dock. And we did get approval for that. So the town issued an RFT, or request for tender, in early January that closed on January 26th, and 3 bids were received by the town. Again, this is kind of a continuation of the replacement of the docks that are 35 years old and well past their useful life. So they do need to be replaced each year. We're trying to budget a decent amount, so we're getting a significant, or probably about at least one main dock and at least replaced per year. So one of the some of the design parameters were steel tubes with extra wall thickness to give it extra longevity. And then the top was clad with pressure treated wood on the tops. We did learn from the last proposals last year that you can get a composite decking, but sometimes there's safety issues or slipping issues, quality issues as the color would fade, and if you had to replace one, it would kind of be it wouldn't look as clean as it would look newer than the older ones. So the F dock is one of the larger docks at 165 feet in length, with 14 fingers and 26 boat slips. It has 8 electrical service pedestals, and it has water as well. And then the fuel dock is about 36 feet in length with about a 5-foot section, again for refueling docks and also pumping out the sanitary services or the sanitary boats. So the new docks would include 8 pedestals on F dock, and each would have 2 30-amp services and then 2 3/4 water connections, just basically what's existing there now, but a new upgrade. And then the last one could be capable of 50-amp for a larger vessel. The fuel dock, we've made it a little bit wider because it is, there's a lot of people coming on and off of it. So we want to make it a little bit safer by making it a bit wider. And then and a lot of boats, of course, are coming in and out of there to get fuel and to dump the sanitary. The way that the docks would, the existing docks would go out, they'd be floated out, and then the new ones would be floated in on the river. Delivery was scheduled for early May, so that we've got everything kind of under control and set up so that the boats can come in there for the long weekend in May on the Victoria Long Day weekend when the marina opens. So we did receive 3 tenders, and they were all, we had the ranking based 75% on the price and 25% on the company profile, resources, and experience. So the first chart gives us the base bid, in which Kehoe Marine Construction was $234,000, and then Croft Industrial was $255,000, and then JWK was $295,000. So all somewhat competitive. There was an alternate bid submitted by Kehoe, 2 alternate bids submitted by Kehoe. One was changing the steel tubes from 24-inch to 28-inch and uncoated. So no coating on, no epoxy coating, and that would actually, they've indicated that does last longer than an epoxy coating because the coating can scratch or come off, and it actually, it can make the tubes rust out faster. And then they had another bid that came in, but they said that they could reuse the electrical that's there, but we weren't confident that would give us meet the code that we wanted, so we weren't interested in something like that. And then Croft came in with the steel tubes uncoated as well at 238,000. And so the overall ranking, you can see that Kehoe Marine Construction scored 98. And that's basically giving them 75 out of 75 rank on the pricing and 23 out of 25 on the company rank. And then the next one was about 9 points behind that. So we're recommending that Kehoe Marine Construction would be, with the bid 1A would be the lowest bid, and it met all the requirements, and they ranked the highest. The bid's reflective of the scope of work that we asked for. They did put in the docks last year as well. They put in a G and H dock, and we were happy with the quality of work that they did and the service and the timing. So of all the 3 tenders that came in, we still would recommend that Kehoe be awarded the tender. Alternatives, council could decide to choose one of the other tenders that were submitted. And then the financial implications, so the reserve had a balance of 182,000 from 2022, and then the budget contribution from 2022 each year is 79,000, so it gives 262 available in 2022, and then so this is kind of backing up, and then G and H stock was 255,000, and then there's a 50,000 from the infrastructure reserve fund that was moved into there, leaving a balance of 56,000 at the Marine Reserve at the end of 22, and then again another 79,000 for reserve, so that gives a balance of 136. So the dock price is about 225,000, and so the 130 would come from the Marine Reserve, and then the remaining 95,000 would come from the dedicated infrastructure reserve. That's the presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Just before we do questions, I'm just going to read the motion, and I'll get a mover and a seconder. So motion is that council approve the selection of Kehoe Marine Construction for the replacement of the F dock and the fuel dock for delivery in early May 2023 at an upset limit of 225 plus taxes. Sorry, 225,000 plus taxes. Better throw that in. So can I get a mover and a seconder on that? Councillor McConnell and Councillor Lockett. And now we can ask questions. Go, Councillor Kirkby.
Sorry, Nathan, so we're going with the 28-inch versus the 24?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
correct.
No, that was one of them. And then the ones that they're pulling out are currently still floating, right? My question is there any possibility of reusing them along our waterfront or anywhere that would make a temporary transient parking that's not inside the marina? Is that something we could ask, I guess, an opinion on from Kehoe?
Sure, yeah, 3 minutes time. Matthew, add to this. Shaker. 9 o'clock yet? It's almost. I didn't want to get in that bucket.
Yes. It's $5 a shot.
I did ask them last year what they do with the docks, and so they actually scrap them because they're not floatable anymore. Some of them do have had foam inserted because they do have holes, and there's closed cell foam inside them just holding them up. So they're really not good to continue to hang on to. Maybe Matthew has something to add to that.
Okay, so they're fairly substantial docks. So when you're going that far out into the river, we'd have to have a lot of approvals by different groups. They're way past end of life. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was more thinking of the fuel dock myself, just like a small raft or something, but okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell?
You, Mayor Shankar.
Thank you.
In the contract, does it specify a date of completion, or can they just continue to say, well, we tried for May?
Yeah.
May 5th.
Yeah, through Mayor Shankar. That's one of the stipulations we had in the tenders, that they have to say yes, they could meet the May 5th deadline. Kehoe, they're supplying almost all the docks, particularly government docks throughout, like a lot of them throughout the St. Lawrence Seaway right now, because they generally have a lot of material in stock. They have a lot of people to build them fast. So we're quite confident they'll be able to hit the time.
Thank you.
Councillor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. I suggest we get a Shankar jar so that anytime somebody calls, we have to put a quarter in it and we donate it to charity at the end of the year.
Bucks.
I'm Scottish.
We're done.
Anyway, what I was just going to emphasize what Nathan was saying. For the past 4 terms, we have been doing everything possible to keep those docks afloat. We experimented with bladders, inflatable bladders in them. We used 2 different types of foam. It's just that we had no money and the marina was losing money for years to replace them. So we did everything we could to stretch their lifespan, and it's over. So we can't just go, well, they don't look too bad. We'll wait 3 years and replace another one. That's not possible. They're not usable. We're lucky you can tow them out of there without them sinking. And once they're out of our marina, they're his problem.
Good. Anyone else for Nathan? No? So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Nathan. Okay, moving on to 13 is resolutions. So under 13.1, we have a resolution for the Prescott BIA Board of Management Appointments. The motion reads that council appoint the following members to the Prescott BIA Board of Management for the current term of council, ending once a new board is appointed. They are Kevin Bunce, Belinda Campbell, Joanna Freer, Terry Gainey, Nicole Hudson, Charity Moran, Nitesh Naidu, Bonnie Pigeon Kugler, and Natalie Sobey. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Burton, seconded by Councilor Young. I'm just going to call the question. All those in favor? Sorry, you want to discuss?
It wasn't a discussion, just a question. We have 2 members of council that are not listed here that are appointed to the BIA, do we not?
We do, and that's covered in our other council committees resolution.
Okay.
Okay. So call the question. All in favor? Great. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 14, we have 2 items under 14 bylaws. Okay, so the first one is that bylaw 05-2023, being a bylaw to set the remuneration rates for members of council, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I have a mover, please? Anyone?
Well, somebody has to do it.
Councilor McConnell, and a seconder.
Somebody wants to get paid?
So is this,
Councilor Burton, okay. So now we can have discussion on this. Who would like to start the discussion? Councilor McConnell?
Thank you. This came up before and we were scheduled, I believe, according to the way it has been done for several years now, a 6-point-something% increase, was it? 6.9%. I didn't think that was reasonable considering the economic times. And I suggested, at least I thought I suggested, which would be reflected here, that we either in future years take the lower of whatever the QP agreement is for that year or the rate of inflation. And I don't see that reflected here. All I see is the QP agreement.
I think it's number 2.
That's what I'm reading.
I went back and listened to the meeting. I think, as I remember correctly, you actually said because we would be looking at council remuneration before the next QP agreement, that you would actually not have that point in there. And because we will be taking a look and reviewing this entire council remuneration before 2025.
I said,
I mean, I what I tried to hear. Those are two different things.
thank you. I seem to recall that rationalization for you, so I'm fine with it.
Anyone else? Councillor Campbell?
Well, now I'm confused. So this bylaw is setting the rate for the current 6.9? Is that what that's?
Yeah. Matthew, do you want to explain this, please?
So, based on council's feedback, they, our understanding is that you want us to bring back the bylaw to be, instead of going to the consumer price index increase, that it would be tied to the QP inflationary increase year over year. And with the understanding that we would bring back a complete review of the council remuneration between now and the end of 2024.
Okay. So with that being said, I personally don't agree with this. I don't feel that we're staff, that we would be lumped in with staff who are under QP. We are elected officials and we don't, I believe Councillor Burton explained a bit at the last meeting how we don't have a set schedule Monday to Friday. We don't have pension plans. We don't, we attend a lot of meetings, all those kind of things. I wouldn't want it to be related to QP, because what if QP is 2% this year, but then they decide to be 8% or 12% in coming years? You wouldn't know that. I also think that the remuneration is fair in terms of, if we want to attract other people to try and run for council, it would be more appealing perhaps to younger people, perhaps, newcomers coming to town, as opposed to being related as a staff person with QP. That's what I'm going to say.
I think, thank you, Councillor Campbell. I think what we did, we went with QP because COLA was 6.9% and QP was 2%. So what Councillor McConnell had suggested was we take the lesser of the two. Since our agreement's always been COLA, but because it was so high and we didn't feel it was fair, that's why we did 2%. So for now, we're doing it with QP until there's a review of the QP agreement, which is, you said 24 or 25?
January 1st, 2025.
25. So, I mean, we could discuss this again next year. And if COLA is 1% and QP is 2%, we can always go back to COLA. We just have to change the bylaw again. Is that correct?
You can, and I think the intention is that we don't necessarily want to review this every year. So whatever decision you make, keeping in mind that until we do a full review, then don't necessarily want to change the bylaw every year.
Okay. Councilman Connell?
I think what Councillor Campbell is missing as well, and I could be wrong, but it's the fact that we are required to examine our pay once a term. That's a requirement. And the way we have done it in the past several terms is that we have solicited a panel of people who are not on council, of people, business people from the community, members of our community, to examine whatever they want to examine. There's no stipulation. And they report back to council with a report that says, we feel in our examination that this is what you should be paid. Now, given the fact that it is a committee that is not attached to this council at all, an independent committee of our municipal members here of town, we felt that whatever they have recommended, we should accept. And that's what we have done. And my idea was that 6.9 was just not reasonable when the employees in town were only getting 2%. Other years, the rate of inflation was about the same, so it wasn't a real problem in my mind anyway. But taking the 2% this year, it's still within reason of what our employees are getting. It's not calling us employees, it's just relating our raise and pay to what theirs is. But before, Matthew mentioned before 2025, we will be required to have that panel examine our pay, and they will make a recommendation as to what we should make. So this is not something that's going to go on for the next 5 years or the next 4 years of this term. It's going to be re-examined probably next year. So this is really a 1 year fix, if you want to put it that way.
So the previous bylaw that we are changing, how did that bylaw come about?
The way I just explained it to you. It was an outside panel of business people. And I'm sure if you really want to know who it was, and if you asked Matthew after the meeting, he might be able to pull it up for you somewhere. But they recommended the wage and the increase per year of whatever the rate of inflation was. And for the last several years, it's been very low. So we really haven't had any reason to discuss it. It's just that the rate was so large this year, I didn't feel comfortable taking it.
Okay,
Okay?
well, I don't feel comfortable either, but there we go.
Well, if I may,
Yeah.
do you have something that you are comfortable with?
I would think 4.
Where do we sit in, with other councils, with other municipalities? Are we on the same level? Are we, like, I have no way of knowing.
So back in 2016, when it was last looked at, we ended up in the middle range of the municipalities at that point. There's another municipality that just recently asked for all of the kind of comparator data, and we'll be receiving that in the next few weeks. And so that will give us an indication of kind of where we are, and whether it's a flat rate or per diem or a mixture thereof, will give us a better indication of what that looks like.
So could we wait until we have that information, or?
Yeah.
It's really hard to give yourself a raise or fire yourself. It's very difficult, and it's difficult for us as new counselors. I mean, for myself as a new counselor, because I don't know where we sit.
We don't have that old bylaw in this package, do we?
Not in the package, no. I think we included it in that previous package.
No, we did, okay.
So even if we get the information back, it's going to take a while to
Right.
kind of analyze it, and then to go to a citizen group to kind of explain it all to them and then work it out. So even if we get it in the next few weeks, we're probably still several months away from being able to recommendation back to council.
Councilor Brenner?
Thank you. I think that the new council members need time to absorb this. I don't think we should automatically change the bylaw because one person, I shouldn't say one person, maybe there's other people around the table that are not comfortable with the raise, but I think for me, in my opinion, we should leave the bylaw as is for now until, like Matthew just said, we're gonna get all this data soon. So for me, I will not be supporting this bylaw tonight because I want to know that you know, it should be even keel for all our municipalities that are neighboring municipalities. Are we the lowest? Not too sure. Are we the highest? Not too sure. And those are the questions that can be answered with more information.
Very good. Anyone else? So Matthew, if, suggestion from Councillor Burton was if we pull back this and go with the existing bylaw, what does that mean?
So I guess what I'd like is an understanding or a motion from council to say that you want to either institute the consumer price index increase at January 1st of 23, or hold it in advance until it's occurred.
Councillor Burton?
I can make a motion to leave the bylaw as status quo and until we can find out further information. Was that kind of what you were looking for?
So do you want to put the increase on hold or implement the increase at January 1st?
I think we should go ahead and implement it. And then we can decide going forward, because you said it's not going to be long until you have that data. Or it might be a couple weeks, right?
Potentially a couple months away before we make recommendations.
Okay, so a couple months away. Everybody feel comfortable with that? Oh.
No.
Okay.
We have a motion on the table currently, which is for the bylaw. I understand it's good discussion going. So are we just going to defer that motion because now we're changing it around altogether? So I'm just trying to figure out what the best way. Because I know, Councillor Burton, you moved a motion that the bylaw remain the same.
Yes.
Okay. So is it the will of council to go with the new bylaw or to remove this, defer this new bylaw until we have more information? And go with the current bylaw. Can we do the current bylaw without giving our raises and we can do retroactive?
Yep.
Or we decide, how's that?
I think we would need a motion to that, just so that if someone was to go back and take a look at the bylaw and say, why haven't you implemented the increase at January 1st? Then, yeah, so we withdraw this bylaw?
Yes, so it would be are we talking about, sorry, through you, are we talking about making an amendment to the bylaw that's been presented? No. So yeah, if Councillor McConnell and Councillor Burton as the mover and the seconder wish to withdraw this motion, we can withdraw this motion, and then once that's dealt with, we can move a new motion altogether.
I'm just trying to keep everyone on the same level here. Would that be okay with you? Mover?
Not if Councillor Burton wants to give us a 6.9% wage increase as of January 1st, which it sounds like is what you're talking about. I would be willing to withdraw the motion if any raises were put in abeyance until we had information from whatever outside source Matthew is referring to, and it was brought back for discussion again. I would be willing to remove my name from the motion if that is what was put forward.
Understood. Sabrina?
Thank you, Mayor Shankar. So the flip side of that, Lee, would be what if the other municipalities are doing 12% increase or 8% increase? I mean, you're thinking that the other municipalities are going to be lower. What if they are higher? Because that is a possibility either way.
I'm not.
Right? So this is what I'm saying. I'm trying to make sure that our staff time, because this is staff time, we're talking about all of the research and collecting data and information. If we're going to change a bylaw and then go, oops, we got to change it again, right? What do we want to do? Do we want to change it once? Or do we want to change it a couple times? Because we're not fully educated around this table tonight, in my opinion, to see what the other municipalities are doing. So.
But the whole purpose of having the outside working group, which you have, I was going to say being a part of, that's not what I meant, but the rewards from, shall I put it that way, as far as the costing for our salaries, what you're talking about is essentially circumventing that and us deciding what the raise is going to be. The whole purpose of this alteration here was that we take what our staff is getting, which is 2%, and before it comes up for renewal again, that we have the outside committee look at it, and they will and have in previous years examined what other councils in our area are being paid. That's part of what they do. Now, if they say that councils around us are all getting $1,000 a month more than we are, that's what they'll tell us, and they may recommend that we give ourselves $1,000 a year. I said month, I meant year, a year raise, and then it will be up to each one of us whether we want to vote to accept that or not. That's our decision, but we don't and haven't made the decision on this is the raise that we're going to get based on. That's been the outside committee's avenue of investigation. So that is why I would be willing to accept to continue getting paid what we're getting paid now. We're not poorly paid. If Matthew finds out that whatever information he's got coming in, everybody gave themselves a 10% raise, well, then it's going to be up to everybody's conscience whether they want to give themselves a 10% raise or not. That's the discussion that comes up at the time. But in the meantime, we continue to be paid what we've been paid, what we were getting paid when we all ran for election. So I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this one.
Go ahead.
I'm in agreement to keep the old bylaw and not vote this new one in.
Councilor Kirkby?
Are we going around the table? Shankar?
Well, I mean, I've heard from two and now three, so.
So, I share the same opinion of Councillor McConnell in the sense that 6.9 seems like a really high number when you say 6.9. Right. What I will say is, by the sounds of it, a group met that has no ties to staff or council and decided that this was the appropriate raise. I don't know when they met, by the way, so I'm
16.
2016? Wow. Yeah. Yeah. So, for that one there, it's kind of tough. A lot of things have changed from now to then. What I will say is 6.9 seems like a lot, but 5 years later, with the expenses of everything else, it maybe is in line with, the industry. So when we say 6.9, that means we haven't seen a raise since 2016. Is that what we're saying?
We've been going with cost of living since 2016.
Okay.
But since cost of living hasn't been substantial.
Right.
It has been not a subject for debate.
Right.
But now, since it's so high, it's created this debate.
So I've always been one of them people, especially at the municipal level, that I don't want anybody at the table for the money, right? It's not a side gig, in my opinion, right? You're here for the community and to represent the people, right? So
On that note, I mean, on that note, I mean, that's where my suggestion of just going with the status quo, keep the old bylaw, but don't implement the raise until we've reviewed it. I think that might be the best scenario.
I feel comfortable with that.
And then they can always, Jessica can go backdate it, right? Retro pay, that's what it's called, right? Okay, how do we do that? Did that work for everybody? Like I'm seeing some nods, but works for you, Councilor Burton? So first we need you two to take away your, withdraw your mover and seconder. So they've done that. Then what?
So through you, Mayor Shanker, if I can attempt direct motion here, that staff be directed to maintain council remuneration as per bylaw 40/2016 without, now I apologize, having to connect everything. I don't have it in front of me, the specific clause that would state that increase. 2016.
So you could just write in at the 2022 remuneration rates.
That staff be directed to maintain council's 2022 remuneration rates. I'm not quite sure, Councilor Burton, if that's kind of what you had on the table, or if you didn't have a seconder, so if we want to do it whole in motion, we can.
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, like I said before, like, we need to be a little bit more educated. And like Councilor Kirkby said, 6.9 is a lot. But I don't want staff time to have to change this bylaw 3 or 4 times. We need to be educated around the table to find out everything. And a perfect point from Mayor Shankar, just, or maybe Matthew said it, I don't know at this point in time. So, but just keep it status quo for now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind reading that again, and then we'll get to the second here. I'm so sorry.
Staff be directed to maintain council's 2022 remuneration rates.
Okay. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Burton, second by Councilor McConnell. All in favor? So moved. Thank you.
Else need a motion.
I know, I got it right here. So I need to extend the meeting. I'm a little late, 9:12. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Young and Councilor Campbell, thank you.
Is it option? We didn't start till.
You get to adjourn them. You get to 9:12. Okay. Okay, next we have 14.2, which is the parking bylaw amendments bylaw. Bylaw 06-2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 47-2017, being a bylaw for the regulation of traffic and parking within the corporation of the town of Prescott, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Kirkby, thank you. Councilor Rocket seconding. Any discussion on this one? Discussion? Thank goodness. All in favor?
Seems hard to figure. I did. I read it.
Let's raise the parking prices. Okay, 15 is new business. There's no new business. 16 is notices of motion. Councilor McConnell, you have a notice of motion regarding a request to amend section 232 of the municipal act.
I do, Mayor Shankar. The notice of motion reads, whereas the Municipal Act 2001 provides elected officials with the prescribed declaration of office, and where section 232 of the Municipal Act 2001 states that a person shall not take a seat on the council of a municipality, including a person appointed to fill a temporary vacancy on an upper tier council, under section 267, but not including a person appointed to act in place of a head of council under section 242 until the person takes the declaration of office in the English or French version of the form established by the minister for that purpose. And whereas the prescribed declaration of office, item 4 states, I will be faithful and bear true allegiances to His Majesty King Charles III, and whereas the current declaration of offices forces a duly elected official to swear allegiance to the king rather than the county, province, I'm sorry, that should read country, province, and community from whence elected. And whereas the province of Quebec recently tabled Bill 4, which would amend the Constitution Act of 1867 and result in abolishing the requirement for elected officials to swear an oath to the king before they can take their seats in the legislature. Therefore, the Council of the Town of Prescott requests that the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing consider amending the Ontario Municipal Act by removing Section 4 from the declaration of office or making it optional, and that a copy of the resolution be sent to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honorable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and all municipalities in Ontario. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to Mayor's Proclamation. Under 17.1, this evening I have a proclamation regarding Wear Red Canada Day for Heart Disease. So, whereas heart disease is the #1 killer of women worldwide and the leading cause of premature death for Canadian women, a fact unknown to many women and their healthcare providers. And whereas the Canadian Women's Heart Health Alliance is an organization of volunteer health professionals and patients working hard to improve women's heart health. And whereas Wear Canada Day is celebrated annually to raise awareness for all Canadians, but especially Canadian women, to be mindful, curious, and proactive in the management of their heart health and wellness. And whereas we want to see better prevention, diagnosis, and care, and fewer women dying prematurely from heart disease. Therefore, I, Gauri Shankar, Mayor of the Town of Prescott, do hereby proclaim February 13th, 2023 as Wear Red Canada Day in the Town of Prescott. Dated this day, 6th of February, 2023. Yeah, we're red 2 days in a row. That's okay, I can do that. We don't have any media. Oh, we do have media. Okay. Ron, are you on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, terrific. Been a while since I've done this Zoom thing. Just wanted to clarify regarding the remuneration motion. So the amounts specified in point number 1A of the bylaw as initially presented, that was reflective of the QP increase?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and did that represent 2% or 2 point something percent over?
2%.
Okay, so that was a 2% increase. Okay. This requirement that remuneration be examined every term, is that somewhere in the municipal act, or is that something in your own municipality's procedural bylaw?
It's in the remuneration bylaw itself that was passed in 2016.
I see. Okay. All right. So sometime in this term, there'll be some sort of outside panel that will examine the entire issue in depth and make a recommendation?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Just quickly, I suppose I familiarize myself a bit more with the file, but 90 Edward Street North, the Wellington House, is that simply putting into place what was announced, I believe, in I believe it was the fall of 2021 when Minister Clark first came by and announced funding for that, if I'm not mistaken. Is that just simply putting into place what was already decided, or is this a new measure?
No, this is the same as what Mr. Clark presented.
Okay.
This is the site plan agreement.
Okay. Regarding the river route, I think I heard you mention that Edwardsburg Cardinal was also discussing it tonight. Have you heard from any of the other partner municipalities about their thoughts going forward, or is this the first pronouncement about it?
I'm aware that Edwardsburg Cardinal will be voting in favor of this. I'm not sure what Augusta's doing, but
Okay.
they've been in favor of it all along as well.
Okay. Okay, I think that's about it. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Ron. Good. Anyone else? No? Okay. So we're going into closed session. So we have a recommendation that council move into closed session at 9:20 PM to discuss matters pertaining to 19.1, approval of closed session minutes from January 3rd that we will have. Point 2, purchase and sale under section 239 2C of the Municipal Act of proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And that the CIO, treasurer, clerk, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Get to leave. Can I get a mover on that, please? Councilor Burton, seconded by Councilor Campbell. All in favor? Great. So I think we'll take a 5-minute quick, what's that called? Comfort break.